Hi. The Call, Chapter 16, Taken. Sometimes I wish I was a magic or Modo was a natural. Tommy, journal entry. Warnicki's violin was wailing before Julian ever got to the door. Sticking his fingers in his ears and wincing, Julian waited for the high-pitched squeals to stop. Well, Warnicki screamed, did you learn anything at all? I found the natural boy. He walks to school and home, and often walks the village at dusk. But he has not met the magic boy again. He spends time collecting rocks and piling them up. I'm tired of waiting, Warnicki growled through gritted teeth. Get the boy and bring him here. And don't get caught. Yes, mistress. Julian headed for the door, muttering under his breath. Suddenly, the violin screeched unbearably, and he fell to the ground, wincing in pain. Do you want to say something? Wernicke shouted. Julian shook his head as he tried to get up on his knees and crawl out of the room. I expect you and the boy back here within the hour. Tommy went out at dusk, gathering rocks for his collection and hoping to find Modo. Several times in the last weeks he had spotted Modo moving through the village. He spied him through the trees at the village store, and on his birthday he met Modo and Gavin for a treat on the wide porch of the Scoop-de-Doo ice cream shop. Modo gave him an awesome book about rock sculptors as a birthday present. But since that night, Modo didn't do more than wave to him in passing. Tommy missed his friend. At least he thought he was still his friend. Anyway, he needed to talk to him. He thought someone was watching him, and he was scared. Tommy sat down on one of the benches scattered throughout the village. Last year, Tommy and Modo did everything together. Some of the best times were hiking through the woods around Anturg. They packed lunches. Tommy brought his rock bag, and Modo brought his flute. One time they hiked up to the watchtower. Tommy laughed, remembering how he wanted to eat lunch on top of the tower and how Modo finally confessed that he was afraid of heights. So they sat at the base of the tower, ate lunch, and talked. Sometimes Modo would play his flute while Tommy searched for interesting rocks. Everything always worked out because they had each other to depend on. Now, Tommy didn't know what to think. Modo was nice enough, but he just didn't seem to have any time for Tommy. Tommy walked around the village several times looking for Modo. Eventually, he headed for the old carousel building. The large round structure stood in an old grove of trees behind the village shops. The once sliding sides, now gray with a few patches of peeling white paint, were frozen in rust on metal rails. Tall ferns and yellow-flowered bushes grew up all around and under the building. Tommy slipped in through a loose board on the back side. The air was damp and thick with the dust of laughter and memories. The old ticket booth stood to one side, its cracked, faded red and blue sign hanging sideways from one nail. On the far side, a long metal arm stretched out of the darkness towards the platform. Extended from the end was a metal ring, a prize riders could reach out and try to grab as they circled around. Tommy and Modo played many times in the old building when they went to school together. All the colorful wooden carved animals were gone to museums and collectors, but the large circular blue platform was still there, and some of the poles were still bolted to the platform. Tommy and Modo would weave in and out of them, racing to see who could get around the circle first. A small shaft of sun, filled with floating motes, descended from a hole in the circular roof onto the platform. Tommy sat down in the puddle of light, wondering what to do. Creak, 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 crash! Ow! Who's there? Modo? Tommy stood up and ran for the loose board to get out. He screamed as something was thrown over his head, enveloping him in darkness. His arms pinned to his sides, he was raised off his feet and swiftly carried away. Suddenly, the air turned cooler as the person carrying him stumbled and then dropped him onto a hard surface. A lid slammed shut above him. An engine started, and then he was moving. He kicked and yelled as the roadster roared down the road. Chapter 17. Warnicki. What would happen if I told Modo, or his dad, or Gavin? I'm just too scared of Warnicki. Tommy, journal entry. Tommy was dumped onto a carpeted floor and a jacket removed from over his head. Afraid to open his eyes, Tommy didn't move, waiting for what would happen next. Open your eyes, boy, a sharp voice ordered. Tommy heard footsteps behind him and turned to see a tall woman dressed in bright purple from the scarf around her crazy blonde head to her knee-high boots. Tommy sat up and looked around the room. There was little light as all the window shades were closed and only small lamps were lit on the tables, casting strange shadows on the windows and the walls. The room was filled with old pieces of furniture, a large sofa with wooden legs, and tables covered with small statues of woodland animals, many of them foxes. On the walls, paintings of flowers brought small spots of bright color into the gloomy room. A tall clock standing in one corner began chiming a soft repeating bong, bong, bong. Get up, natural, the woman said, sneering. Tommy scrambled to his feet, though his legs were shaking and his heart pounded so loudly in his ears he was sure the woman could hear it. Tell me about the magic boy, she commanded. What magic boy? Tommy answered. The one Julian saw you with the other evening in Anturg, the woman said, glaring at Tommy. I have lots of friends, naturals and magics. I'm not sure which one you're talking about, Tommy said. The woman walked across the room and picked up a violin. Placing it under her chin, she played one long, sustained, screeching note. Tommy thought his head was going to explode. The pain seared through his brain and he fell to the floor. Shall we try again? The woman asked. What is the magic boy's name? Why do you want to know? Tommy asked. Okay, said the woman, lifting the violin to her chin. No, Tommy said. Wait. That's better, the woman said. You might mean Modo, Tommy whispered, a tear slowly rolling down his cheek as he sat up. Ah, well, now I have a name. Where does he live? In Anturg, near the racket park. Why do you want to know about Modo? Tommy asked. None of your business, natural, she replied. Well, what do you want with me? I didn't get into Lower Scola. I'm not a magic. I don't have any gifts. One thing I have learned, natural, although magic gifts are very strong, naturals possess powerful gifts also. The trick is knowing what kind of gift you possess. Tommy was confused. Why would this magic want him? And how was Modo involved? Now, Tommy, I'm going to ask you a question and only the truth will be accepted. Do you understand? Tommy nodded. Good. Does Modo have a dragon? A dragon? No! Instantly, Warnicki lifted her violin and placing it under her chin, she began to play. A blinding pain raced through his body, making it impossible to breathe. Tommy screamed and fell to the floor again, pulling his knees to his chest, tears flowing down his cheeks and onto the blue carpet. Rolling onto his side, blackness closing in, Tommy was sure he was going to pass out. And just as suddenly, it stopped. Tommy gasped for air. Warnicki placed the violin back in the case. Now, I'll ask once again, does Modo have a dragon? I don't know, Tommy said, sobbing. I've only seen him twice since school started. He didn't say anything about a dragon. Please, I don't know. Julian, Warnicki called. A small man stumbled in immediately. Take him back before he's missed. But you, boy, are going back with a job to do. Follow Moto and found out if he does have a dragon, and if so, where he's keeping it. And not a word about seeing me. Do you understand? Yes, Tommy whispered. If you try to trick me, not only will you never go home, you will watch and see how much your mother likes my violin music. Then you will both be sent to the foundry, where you will be my slaves for the rest of your lives. Hot sparks falling on your skin, tongues coated with ash, eyes blinded by the intense fires. Is that clear? Tommy nodded, unable to speak. Julian, return him to Anturg. Stay close by and see that he fulfills his mission. Yes, mistress. Come on, boy. Julian turned and walked right into the door frame, smashing his nose. Tommy grabbed his hand and pulled him through before Warnicki could get the violin to her chin.